Welcome back to Park and Post. Today, we're diving into a super important topic, the top 30 customs and import restrictions you must know when traveling by plane. Whether you're a seasoned globetrotter or planning your first international trip, this video is packed with essential information to keep your journey smooth and hassle-free. So, buckle up and let's get started. Number 1. Liquids in carry-on luggage. The restriction on liquids in carry-on luggage is a standard across most international airports. Passengers are usually allowed to carry liquids in containers of no more than 100 milliliters, and all such containers must fit comfortably in a single, clear, resealable plastic bag of a specific size. This rule was implemented as a security measure against liquid explosives and is strictly enforced at airport security checkpoints. For example, a traveler flying from New York to London would need to ensure their toiletries like shampoo, perfume, or toothpaste are in compliance with these limits. In some cases, exceptions are made for medications and baby foods, but these also need to be declared at security checks. Number 2. Fresh fruits and vegetables. Bringing fresh fruits and vegetables across international borders is generally restricted due to concerns about spreading pests and plant diseases. For instance, a passenger flying from Australia to the United States cannot bring most fresh produce into the country. These restrictions are critical for protecting local agriculture from invasive species and diseases. Travelers should always check the agricultural import laws of their destination country. There are instances where travelers have faced fines or had their items confiscated for not adhering to these regulations. Number 3. Meat and animal products. Meat and animal products are highly regulated due to risks like foot and mouth disease and avian flu. For instance, the European Union has strict controls on meat and dairy products brought in from non-EU countries. These products can potentially carry pathogens that pose a threat to public health and agriculture. As a result, many countries have stringent checks at their borders, and violating these restrictions can lead to penalties. A traveler from South America to Europe, for example, would need to be cautious about bringing any meat products along. Number 4. Dairy products. Similar to meat, dairy products also face import restrictions in many countries. These rules are in place to prevent the introduction of diseases like bovine spongiform encephalopathy, BSE. A traveler wishing to bring cheese into Japan, for instance, would need to ensure it complies with the local import laws, which can be quite restrictive. Often, only commercially packaged dairy products are allowed, and even then they may be subject to inspection and quarantine. Number 5. Seeds and nuts. The importation of seeds and nuts is often restricted to prevent the spread of non-native species, which can disrupt local ecosystems. For example, someone traveling to New Zealand would find strict biosecurity measures in place to protect its unique flora and fauna. Importing seeds without a permit or failing to declare them can result in fines. Even if the seeds are for personal use, like planting a garden, they still must comply with the destination country's biosecurity laws. Number 6. Plants and soil. Importing plants and soil is highly regulated due to the potential spread of pests and diseases. For instance, bringing a potted plant from Africa into the United States would require a phytosanitary certificate and potentially a period of quarantine. These restrictions are in place to protect local agriculture and ecosystems from invasive species and diseases. Travelers often find that it's easier to purchase plants at their destination rather than attempting to bring them across borders. Number 7. Cultural artifacts and antiquities. The export and import of cultural artifacts and antiquities are regulated under international law. Countries like Egypt and Greece have strict laws to prevent the illicit trade of their historical artifacts. For instance, taking an ancient artifact from Italy without permission could lead to severe legal consequences, including fines and imprisonment. These laws are in place to protect cultural heritage and ensure that historical items remain in their country of origin or are legally exported. Number 8. Drugs and medications. Traveling with prescription and over-the-counter medications can be complex due to varying international drug laws. Some medications that are legal and readily available in one country might be restricted or even banned in another. For example, a common over-the-counter nasal decongestant in the United States might be considered a controlled substance in Japan. Therefore, it's essential for travelers to carry a copy of their prescription and a letter from their doctor explaining the need for the medication. Furthermore, the quantity of medication brought should generally not exceed what one would use for the duration of the trip. It's always advisable to check the destination country's embassy or consulate for specific medication import regulations. Number 9. Weapons and ammunition. Transporting weapons and ammunition across international borders is heavily regulated and often prohibited without a special permit. For instance, a traveler cannot simply bring a firearm on a flight from the United States to Canada without declaring it and following strict transport regulations. Even items that might be considered weapons, like certain types of knives or martial arts equipment, can be subject to these restrictions. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse, and failing to declare these items can result in criminal charges. Number 10. Counterfeit goods. The import of counterfeit goods is illegal and subject to strict enforcement in many countries. This includes fake designer clothes, handbags, watches, and other knockoff products. For example, if a traveler purchases counterfeit designer bags in Thailand and attempts to bring them into France, they can be confiscated, and the traveler can face fines. The global crackdown on counterfeit goods is not just about protecting brands, but also about combating the illegal activities often associated with the production and sale of these items. Number 11. Alcohol and tobacco. There are usually strict limits on the amount of alcohol and tobacco a traveler can bring into a country without paying duty. For instance, a traveler flying into India is allowed to bring only 2 liters of alcohol and 100 cigarettes duty-free. Exceeding these limits can result in having to pay a hefty duty fee or having the items confiscated. These limits are in place to control the consumption of these products and to protect domestic markets. Number 12. Pets and live animals. Traveling with pets typically requires compliance with a range of health and safety regulations, including vaccination certificates and sometimes quarantine. For example, bringing a dog from the United States to the United Kingdom involves microchipping the pet, getting a rabies vaccination, and obtaining a pet passport. In some cases, like with Australia, a quarantine period is mandatory. These measures are in place to prevent the spread of diseases like rabies and to protect local wildlife and livestock. Number 13. Currency restrictions. Many countries have restrictions on the amount of currency you can bring in or take out. For instance, if a traveler wishes to enter or leave the European Union with 10,000 euros or more, they must declare it to customs. These laws are designed to combat money laundering and other illegal financial activities. It's crucial for travelers to be aware of these limits and declare their currency if necessary to avoid penalties. Number 14. Electronic cigarettes and vaping devices. Many countries have specific regulations regarding the transport of electronic cigarettes and vaping devices. For instance, some countries may allow these devices in carry-on baggage but not in checked luggage due to fire safety concerns. Additionally, the liquid used in these devices is often subject to the same restrictions as other liquids in carry-on luggage. Number 15. Protected wildlife and plants. Beyond just products from endangered species, the transport of certain live animals, plants, or products from protected wildlife, even if not endangered, can be subject to strict regulations or bans. This includes items like coral, certain types of wood, or animal hides. Before we move on, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe and click the bell to be notified of our latest travel tips and share this information with your friends and family. But let's get back to the topic. 30 customs and import restrictions you must know when traveling by plane. Number 16. Ivory and endangered species products. The trade in ivory and products from endangered species is heavily restricted or banned under international conventions like CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. For example, bringing ivory carvings from Africa into the United States is not only illegal, but can lead to severe legal consequences, including heavy fines and imprisonment. These restrictions are crucial for the conservation of endangered species. Tourists should be wary of purchasing such items as souvenirs, as they could be contributing to illegal wildlife trafficking. Number 17. Pornographic material. Carrying pornographic material across borders is illegal in many countries with severe penalties for non-compliance. For instance, countries in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, have strict laws against materials that they deem to be pornographic, which could include magazines, DVDs, or even certain types of art. Travelers caught with such materials at customs could face serious legal troubles. It's essential to respect the cultural norms and laws of the country you're visiting. Number 18. Pesticides and hazardous chemicals. The import of pesticides and other hazardous chemicals is typically restricted and may require special permits. This is because these substances can pose significant risks to public health and the environment. For example, a farmer or researcher traveling to Brazil with agricultural chemicals would need to ensure compliance with the country's regulations regarding such substances. Violating these regulations can result in fines, confiscation of the chemicals, or even legal action. Number 19. Fireworks and explosives. Importing explosives, including fireworks, is usually illegal or requires special authorization due to the obvious risks they pose. For instance, a traveler cannot bring fireworks from the United States into Canada without proper permits and declarations. These regulations are in place to prevent accidents and potential terrorist activities. Even small quantities of fireworks can lead to legal issues at customs. Number 20. Food products in general. Many countries have restrictions on imported food products, especially those that are not commercially packaged. This is to prevent the introduction of foodborne illnesses and pests. A traveler bringing homemade food items into Australia, for example, would likely face strict scrutiny, and many items may be prohibited. It's best to avoid traveling with homemade food items unless you are certain they are permitted. Number 21. Gold and precious metals. The import or export of gold and other precious metals can be restricted and usually requires declaration. This is to prevent money laundering and illegal trade. For instance, if someone tries to take a large amount of gold from Dubai to India, they will need to declare it at customs and possibly pay duties. Travelers should be aware of these regulations to avoid any legal complications. Number 22. Automobiles. Importing a vehicle can be complicated and expensive due to duties and compliance with local emissions and safety standards. For example, a European car imported to the United States may need modifications to meet U.S. emissions and safety standards. Import duties and taxes can also add a significant cost to the vehicle. It's essential to research these requirements thoroughly before attempting to import a vehicle. Number 23. Agricultural equipment. Importing agricultural equipment like tractors or harvesters typically requires cleaning and inspection to ensure it's free from soil and pests. For example, used farming equipment from the United States entering Australia must be thoroughly cleaned to remove any traces of soil or plant material. This is to prevent the introduction of foreign pests and diseases that could harm the agricultural sector. Number 24. Radioactive materials. The transport of radioactive materials is strictly controlled and typically only allowed under specific licensed conditions. These materials are subject to stringent international regulations due to their potential harm to public health and the environment. For instance, a medical company shipping radioactive isotopes for medical use would need to comply with both international and local regulations governing the safe transport of these materials. Number 25. Data storage devices. When traveling with laptops, hard drives, or USB sticks, be aware that customs officials in some countries can request access to your digital data. This can include personal information, photos, or work-related data. In some cases, encrypted devices might raise suspicions and lead to further questioning. Number 26. Body armor and self-defense items. The importation of body armor and self-defense items like pepper spray can be restricted or require special permits in many countries. For instance, a tourist cannot bring pepper spray into the United Kingdom as it is classified as a prohibited weapon. These regulations are in place to control weapons and items that could be used for violent purposes. Number 27. Unprocessed wood and timber products. Due to concerns about pests and diseases, there are restrictions on unprocessed wood. For instance, bringing wooden souvenirs from Bali to Australia might not be allowed without proper treatment and certification. These restrictions are crucial for protecting local ecosystems and industries from invasive species and diseases. Number 28. Chemical substances. Certain chemicals, including some cleaning products and solvents, are subject to import controls due to their potential use in illegal activities or environmental hazards. For example, bringing industrial-strength cleaners from Mexico to the United States might require special permits or be entirely prohibited. Travelers should be cautious about transporting any chemical substances across borders and should check the relevant regulations beforehand. Number 29. Drones and surveillance equipment. Many countries have specific regulations regarding the import and use of drones and surveillance equipment. For example, flying a drone for recreational purposes in Morocco without prior authorization is prohibited. These devices are often subject to strict controls due to concerns about privacy and national security. Travelers should always check the local laws regarding drones and similar equipment before traveling. Okay, now, are you looking for last-minute deals? Would you like to save big on flights from your city with discounts ranging from 40 to 90% off? Let us assist you in booking your dream trip. We provide various discounts and savings options to our valued customers. Join our free newsletter and become a friend of Park and Post. By signing up, you'll receive exclusive offers and updates. Click the link below to join our newsletter and start enjoying the benefits today. Number 30. Artworks and antiques. Importing artworks and antiques may require proof of provenance and be subject to cultural heritage laws. For instance, taking a historic painting out of Italy may require an export license to ensure it's not a stolen artifact or of significant cultural value. These laws are designed to protect the cultural heritage of a country and prevent the illicit trade of valuable artworks and antiques. In summary, international travel requires awareness and respect for the customs and import restrictions of the destination country. It's always advisable to research these regulations in advance to ensure a smooth travel experience. And there you have it. The top 30 customs and import restrictions to be aware of when flying internationally. Remember, being informed is key to a smooth travel experience. If you found this video helpful, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to Park and Post for more travel tips and guides. Safe travels. We'll catch you in the next video.